Thank you, Claire. And thank you everyone for joining. We also want to thank Wildfire Commons for giving us this opportunity to share with you all. So the topics for today is accessing real-time environmental data for wildfire readiness. And speakers, of course, are myself, Melanie Scott, and Miranda Bidding, and we will introduce ourselves a little further in a couple of slides. The agenda for today is I will go through an introduction to Synoptic. If you have not heard of Synoptic Data, we'll just give you a little bit of background of who we are and why we've been working with Wildfire Commons and how you can access some of our data. Brief company history. Again, we just think it's important to kind of share some of the accomplishments we've had over the years throughout our company. And then Miranda will go into more detail about how data is accessed, and then also giving some examples of data in action. So we'll share a few customer stories and customers that we've worked with that have been using some of the data for wildfire specific opportunities. So we'll share those too. I'll introduce myself first. So Melanie Scott, I do have a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics from St. Louis University. I am from St. Louis, so that's where I live and reside, and have been there my whole life. So even went to school there, but really have that strong background in the aeronautics side. But my major was meteorology, and that is my passion. I've been doing that for 25 years. I started out in road weather. So if you know what that is or are familiar with road weather information systems, they are on the side of the highway. Usually, sometimes there's sensors within the highway for departments of transportation to know when snow and ice, when to clear snow and ice as pavement freezing. So that was kind of the core of that business where I got started. I was a forecaster there for a private weather firm. I've been in the private sector for my career. That company was eventually acquired, and I moved through a few different company names, but stayed in the weather space, working for companies like Vaisala toward the end, and now Synoptic Data. And then a lot of my career after forecasting was in marketing. So I've been fortunate to have time in spending with my passion, but also writing stories, marketing products and services for weather firms. So it's been a great ride, and love to keep going with that here at Synoptic. So with that, I'll turn it over to Miranda to introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie. It's great to be here. My name's Miranda Bidding. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area. And like Melanie, I'm also a meteorologist. I have both bachelor's and master's degrees in meteorology. And I've been with Synoptic for almost 6 months now. So this is my first webinar with Synoptic, and I'm excited about that. Before that, I actually started my career in government. So I was with NOAA, or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I started at the satellite and information side of NOAA, working on low Earth orbit satellite mission planning and systems engineering projects. And then more recently, I was with NOAA Research, or NOAA OAR, where I worked closely with the chief scientist on research and development planning and strategy. Now at Synoptic, my focus is in the federal government and utility sectors mainly, and I work with users to help them find the best data solutions for their use cases. And through working with utilities especially, I've been exposed to a lot of fire weather related use cases for our data. So I want to echo Melanie and thank the Wildfire Commons for having us today. And I'm looking forward to introducing you all to Synoptic and finding ways that we can support people working in fire weather.
Before we jump into everything too, I want to remind the audience that we will have time for questions at the end. However, you can type those in at any time into the chat. So we're happy to answer that, and we should have plenty of time to answer questions. So starting out with a little bit more about Synoptic, we are a purpose-driven company. We're a public benefit corporation, and I'm proud to be a public benefit corporation. And not sure how much you know about those types of organizations, but typically they are for-profit companies. However, they have legal backing. They have agreed with their stakeholders that Sometimes you may make decisions that's for the good of the company or the good of the community versus a profit. So, that's kind of a designation. Some other organizations some other PBCs, you might hear that term, Public Benefit Corporation or PBC. They may do other charitable events and things like that. But really, it just gives you a strong stakeholder background in, making good decisions for the better of the community. So we are building the largest real-time environmental data platform in the world. That is our mission. We want to provide data for all. We want to empower users with this data. We know that, accessing data may or may not be easy or quick. And we wanted to bring everything onto one platform to make it accessible and easy for users to get a hold of, especially, if you're working in rural locations. Or, for example, I mentioned that I worked in road weather. And when I was a forecaster, Synoptic was not around. So it's been a long time, but Synoptic was not around yet. And I really would have appreciated having some of that data in order to better our forecasts, and or just knowing when did the front move through the state. If you're looking at forecasting through a certain state and a cold front is coming through, or even a warm front, it's just helpful to have data points, as many data points as you can, for forecasting and situational awareness and watching trends. And that's about a lot about what we do at Synoptic. We want to bring all of that data readily available and accessible for all. So a little bit about our history. I mentioned that, when I was a forecaster, Synoptic wasn't around yet. And we really were built or grown out of a program at the University of Utah. So they are operating MesoWest. If you've ever heard or used data from MesoWest, we are very much closely tied with the university there and with that program, and kind of, becoming the commercial extension of that program. So it developed and grew, actually leading into the National Mesonet program. And if you have not heard of the National Mesonet program, it is a program that brings together non-federal data to the National Weather Service. So they can use federal data, non-federal data, public, private. They can access any kind of station data for forecasting, for research, for watches and warnings, and really protecting life and property. So we've been a part of the National Mesonet program, you could say, even before Synoptic was kind of commercially formed in 2012. So that's been a huge part of our organization, still is. We're still working with that program and bringing new sets of data to the National Weather Service and NOAA. So that's been a great program for us. And we really love to see how it's grown and changed over the years, and how we've been able to contribute to forecasters, saving lives and property. That's really at the heart of Synoptic. As we, continued to grow, we became a public benefit corporation in 2018. That's not listed here. But, that was just a decision we made that we felt like is important. We work with the WMO. If you've heard of WIS 2.0 or WIS 2.0 is usually what it's referred to. We've been working a lot with those programs and developing a test infrastructure. And that's all about sharing data, especially just globally, internationally. So we just really want to be a part of data sharing all over the world. Go ahead. Just to give you an idea of what we have in our database, back before we were even Synoptic, it was maybe 500 stations. And now you can see just how we've accelerated the growth of the number of stations that are in our platform. And this is environmental data of all types. So it's your basic atmospheric data, air temperature, dew point, relative humidity, wind speed and direction, wind gusts, those types of things. But we also have parameters like soil moisture or soil temperature. There's some fire weather specific in our API. that can be accessed. So there's a lot of rich data in our platform, and you can just see how we're just growing it over time, and we continue to grow because, even though we're the largest, there's still a lot more data sets out there that we could add to our platform to give people the benefit and value from these data sets. We've been a leader in public-private academic partnerships. Again, this is, I would say, one of the core things that Synoptic does. We know how to partner. We have, data providers that are providing their data, and we work closely with them so that it can be shared on our platform. Those relationships we don't take lightly because we don't own the data in our platform. It is still, the data providers are the owners, and, we're just facilitating it and taking care of that data quality, controlling it, which we'll talk about a little more later. But, we are very skilled in partnership type opportunities, and, always looking to do more of that, and just, again, do good for the communities all over the world. So, as part of our work with the National Weather Service, we are proven and trusted. We've been working with them for a long time, as well as other major government organizations, other utility networks, various other local, state government types, international. So definitely, we can be trusted facilitating that data. We've recently gotten ISO certifications, again, just to share and show to all users that we care about the data and the quality of our programs. And then, we're dedicated to continuous innovation. So we're always looking for feedback from users like you. So whenever you have feedback, we are very open to taking that in. If there's a network that you see that's missing, we'd love to add that. A data set, a variable, something that could be useful for your work. We are always open and willing to hear that and get that feedback. Just a little bit about who we serve, in case you weren't aware. I mean, obviously, I've talked about some of our larger government contracts, but we work with other government agencies, not just NOAA or the National Weather Service. We do a lot of work with energy and utilities, especially as they have fire weather situations. They may need to shut down power. So definitely they see value in having the rich data sets that we have in our platform. And we work closely with them, even, to ingest their networks as well, because they have networks that can be accessed and utilized for their operations and their forecasts and their the safety of just even their own, not just their communities, but their own staff. We do work closely with other weather companies. So we're not a forecasting operation. We're not doing some of those other services. We are our data, and that's what our focus is. So we often work with other weather companies to help them supply data for whatever applications they're doing, and assisting their end users as well. I also work with emergency management, probably a newer segment that we're looking after. There's obviously lots of flooding situation or disasters locally. They've got to be on top of what's going on with the weather. And so data is quite valuable as well, even in some of those rural communities as well, or rural spaces where data can be scarce. We can be an advocate and supply data there for them. Some of the other ones, toward the bottom, aviation, we'll talk a lot about fire weather. That's why we're here today, so I won't touch on that. Insurance, and then of course, as everyone knows, AI and machine learning is a huge topic at the moment. Everybody is using those types of tools. So of course, we have data that can, help with machine learning and powering AI models and things like that. So we're happy to support those efforts as well. So if you've never used Synoptic or heard of us or thought about data, this is a great visual, because on the left is just the ASOS and AWAS network. So if you own, like when I was a forecaster, that's kind of what we had to work with. You know, it was sort of that sparse. It was good. We thought it was great at the time. We had that data to access, and there were some other areas that we could get data from or pull data from. But as you can see on the right, with Synoptic's platform, almost 100,000 stations in just the U.S. And remember, we're a global organization, so that builds to 170,000, when you get globally. But just, in the US alone, there's still some maybe gaps in the West, in some spots, but it's pretty well covered. And this just gives us a nice, rich data set for everyone to use. And also, I mean, again, as a forecaster, as a former forecaster, I can just tell you how valuable this is. And this is getting data from one place. So you don't have to visit, various sources or various network sites or platforms in order to access this data. We've brought it all together into one place. And that's really a great value when you're, trying to make decisions quickly, trying to get information quickly. It is here in one place. With that, I will turn it over to Miranda.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie. So now that Melanie's given you an overview of who we are as a company, I'd like to introduce some of our main products and services, especially those that are most relevant to this community, as well as get into some of the various ways that you can go about accessing our data. So I want to start off with our data viewer. This is actually a free tool that's available on our website. You just have to go to viewer.synopticdata.com. That link is on the slide there. And this is a map tool that helps you visualize near real-time observations from, I think, over 170,000 stations globally. I say I think because we're adding new stations every day and it's kind of hard to keep current. But the viewer is something that we're constantly adding new features to and improving based on feedback from our users. And it's really designed to be intuitive. So you don't need to be a GIS expert to navigate it. It's pretty straightforward to figure out. And the way it works is you can pan around to an area that you're interested in and zoom in. And we do have a spatial thinning algorithm. So the more you zoom in, the more stations appear so that you're not inundated with stations and can't read any of the observations. There are options to filter by weather variable or environmental variable and the network, as well as some overlays for US radar, hazards, and local storm reports. So that can just help you get a better idea of what's going on and improve your situational awareness. You can also click on a station to display time series of the recent data. And the data available through the viewer is continually updating. So Synoptic gets data directly from our data providers with very low latency because we're getting it directly from the source. And so as soon as we receive new observations, the viewer automatically updates to show the latest conditions. There's also a time slider bar at the bottom of the screen, so you can step backward in time by 5-minute, 1 hour, or 1 day intervals, so you can see easily how conditions have been changing over time. You can also put in a specific date and time if you'd like to go back and look at conditions during a specific event that you're interested in. Currently, we have 26 environmental variables supported through the viewer, including variables that are of interest to the fire weather community, like temperature, humidity, wind speeds, and things like that. We do have almost 200 additional variables available through the API, which I'll touch on later. And now I'm actually going to go through and give a brief demonstration of how you can navigate the viewer. So when you go to viewer.synopticdata.com, it will bring you to a page that looks something like this. Each circle on the map is a station that we have in our platform. And you're able to click and drag around the map and zoom in on an area of interest. And like I mentioned before, the more you zoom, the more stations will appear. So here I've zoomed in on the San Diego, California area, for example. And you'll notice that currently I have air temperature selected. So all of those numbers in the circles are showing me the latest air temperature observations from the time that I took this screenshot last week. The circles are also color-coded based on the air temperature. So warmer temperatures are going to be more red, whereas cooler, it'll get down into greens and yellows and things like that. So now I've clicked on a specific station, KNZY, which is part of the ASOS-AWOS network. And so in addition to the station ID, this view shows me where the station is located, which is the San Diego North Island Naval Air Station, as well as the most recent air temperature observation and when it was taken. Now, if I click on that option, Display Conditions, it'll take me here. And from here, I can view time series displays of those recent observations. So here, for example, I'm seeing a 3-day time series plot of air temperatures in this location. And on the left there is a chart showing an overview of conditions, including dew point, relative humidity, wind speed, and direction. So now I've clicked on wind in that bottom panel there. And so now I'm seeing a 3-day time series plot of wind information. So the green line is wind speed in miles per hour, and the yellow dots are wind directions. If this station were reporting wind gusts, these would also show up here. You can also click on the gear icon in the top right corner, and you can adjust your variable preferences in the viewer. So for example, if you'd prefer to see winds reported in knots as opposed to miles per hour, you can make that change. And for temperatures, we support Fahrenheit, Celsius, and Kelvin, for example. So there's some features that help you customize your views. Now I've clicked on precipitation, and in this area, there was no measurable precipitation at the site during this time period. Drawing your attention to the About KNZY button, I can click on that, and that will bring me to the metadata section, where I can see basic metadata for the station that I've selected. And so metadata available through the viewer includes things like the station ID, the name, what network it's a part of, where it's located, down to the latitude and longitude, and the period of record for that station that we have available through Synoptic's platform. And it also has the full list of variables that the station reports, even if they're not directly supported through the viewer. You can still see that the station is reporting that variable. And so lastly, I want to direct your attention to the download icon on the right side of the screen. If I click on that, it'll take us to the data download tool, which is a free option to download small amounts of environmental data directly from the Synoptic website. So to make a download, you fill out this form with the start and end dates and times, what variables you need, and the output time zone, and that's pretty much it. Depending on the size of your requested data package, it could take a couple of minutes. So once the data is available, you'll receive an email. And as I just showed, the data download tool is self-service, meaning you can request data independently of the API and without having to reach out to us. You do need a free Synoptic account to do downloads, but that's very easy to set up if you go to the website. Each user is allowed up to 3 free downloads per day, and what we mean by one download is data from one station's worth of data at a time. You're able to filter the request and only download a subset of variables, so you don't need to get everything the station is reporting if you don't need everything. You can also choose the data format that you're most comfortable with. So we have options for CSV, JSON, XML, or Excel, so pretty flexible on that front. And this tool is really useful if you're doing a local analysis on a small number of stations. One thing to note is that the free data available through the data download tool is raw data, so there's not been any quality control applied to it. So if you are using this data for research purposes, you might want to go in and do your own QC ahead of time. So now I will get into the Weather API, which is our most popular paid service. So if you're not familiar with APIs, that stands for Application Programming Interface, or in other words, it's a single access point to all of the data that we have in the Synoptic platform. Synoptic, as Melanie mentioned, our specialty is real-time and historical data. So we don't have any forecast data at this time. Our specialty is really in the real-time observations and building the largest network for that information. We do apply a suite of quality control checks to all of our data as it comes into our system in real time. The data available through our API is also very low latency because we're getting it directly from our data providers as opposed to taking it from a publicly facing website, for example. So once the data hits our front door, we apply quality control immediately, which takes on the order of 10 to 20 seconds to run through all of our checks. So generally, we're doing everything we can to minimize latency and get the data into the hands of the users as soon as possible. Our API is also very well documented and easy to get spun up on. We have detailed documentation for how everything works, including a query builder that can help you formulate API requests if you haven't done that before. We also have very detailed information about all of the different quality control checks that we run on the data. And I mentioned that we currently support 26 environmental variables through the data viewer, but we actually have over 220 variables available through the API. So that includes your basic weather data like temperature, humidity, and winds, but also we have air quality, solar radiation, and a lot of precipitation and water data as well. Our API has a 99% uptime guarantee, meaning that at any given time, no more than 1% of our stations are down. But in reality, our uptime is more on the order of 99.9%. So it is very reliable. So in general, our API is super reliable, offers low latency data access and real-time quality control. And there's just a very large amount of stations and variables available in one place. So to dive a little deeper into our quality control, as you all probably know, quality control data is essential for accurate forecasts and situational awareness, as well as for drawing accurate insights in research studies. You wouldn't want to conduct an analysis on a fire weather event, for example, without first removing data that might be erroneous. And so, like I mentioned, Synoptic's quality control checks are applied in real time to all of the data as it enters our system. And our QC checks include a range check, rate of change check, so making sure things aren't changing too quickly from observation to observation. We have a temporal persistence check, so if a sensor is reporting the exact same measurement for, say, 24 hours in a row, that could get flagged as erroneous. We have spatial checks, comparing stations to their nearest neighbors and making sure there's some consistency spatially. And we also have a wind gust factor, which is actually a new development. The way that works is it will flag a wind gust value if the ratio of wind gusts to wind speed exceeds a threshold that we've determined from a power law curve that was derived from large data samples of wind speeds and wind gusts. And that's kind of getting into the weeds of it, but we wanted to be able to flag suspect wind data without removing outliers. And this is just an example of some of the development that our technical team has done to continually improve our QC and make sure we're flagging erroneous data, but keeping outliers that are real. So we do own the platform, but not the data. So we're not changing or editing any of the data. Instead, if any of the observations that come in fail our quality control, we assign a QC flag to the data. So as the user, you can choose to only pull data that has passed all of our quality control, or you can receive all of the raw data with the quality control checks applied, and you can decide whether or not to use it from there. Another recent development from our technical team is the statistics and percentile service, which actually launched just this past summer. And we built this by working directly with our utility partners, many of whom are concerned about fire weather risk in their service territories. We work with a lot of utilities out west where fire weather is a major concern. And so the driving force behind this project was that our partners were telling us they don't care about wind gust value. 60 miles per hour gust doesn't mean anything to them. They need to know if it's a rare event. Is that a high wind speed or wind gust value for that location? And so we built the statistics and percentile service, which allows you to request daily and monthly minimum, maximum, and mean values for all stations and variables in our platform. For example, you can get the daily maximum temperature, wind speeds, and wind gusts during a prolonged wildfire event. Percentiles are currently supported for air temperature, wind speeds, and wind gusts. So you can tell that we were developing this with fire weather in mind. And so an example use case for percentiles would be getting the hourly wind gust values for a station and comparing them to that particular station's historical record. So for example, you could see which of those wind gust values exceeded the 90th, 95th, and 99th percentiles for that specific location and see how rare of an event it was. So this is a great tool for adding historical context to data and determining how typical or unusual an event was. Statistics are updated every day and percentiles are rerun every month. So this is useful for stations that don't have a very long period of record, which allows the statistical insights to become more and more robust over time. You can also get percentiles in real time and compare the most recent observation to the station's historical percentile. So if you're monitoring how wind speeds and wind gusts are changing in real time, you can see, oh, the wind gust is currently 65 miles per hour at this location. And for that area, this constitutes a 95th percentile wind gust. We do also have an open access program. So as part of our public benefit corporation mission, we want to enhance understanding of the Earth. And so toward that goal, we do offer free API access to students for use in their research, whether that be a master's thesis, a doctoral dissertation, or even a school project. And so to participate, you need a .edu email, and there's a form that you can fill out on our website. So if you or someone you know is interested in getting open access and they're a student, please feel free to fill out that form on the website, or if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or Melanie. So I will pass it back to Melanie to explain some of the use cases of our data.
Thank you, Miranda. So we wanted to share a couple of examples, specifically in the fire weather space, where we've worked with some customers or partners in order to empower either an application or a modeling service. And the first one I'd like to share is Watch Duty. So Watch Duty is a mobile app. If you've heard of it, maybe you've downloaded it. This app is great for, it was kind of born out of, there's got to be a better way, right? There has to be a way to get information to people quickly and really, deliver real-time live information because, you could be evacuating, you could be, making plans, maybe it's come upon you quickly. So, minutes, seconds matter. And so Watch Duty really it was born around making data available and information available mobilely. So they are actually using Synoptic Data within the app. So, part of the app is being powered through Synoptic Data. And, it's the real-time information that's critical here. So we're supplying real-time data from all of the stations, within that threat area that the user is looking at. We have, a large breadth of stations, right? So we may have a station that's close to one of their homes or businesses or family members where they can see what's happening quickly. It's also being used by first responders. There's I think a news feed within the app where, communities can kind of share what's happening at the ground level and share, where things are happening, where evacuations, where services, where they can get services. So it's really a great application for saving lives and really being a part of the community. And so I think this is, again, something at the core of what Synoptic does. And so we're, empowering this app and, we're empowering when people have ideas and they want to bring information and services and insights, we can be the data platform to help power that. So I think this is a great example of what we do and how, again, users are facilitating the data for the needs and the betterment of the community. So if you haven't downloaded this, I encourage you to check it out. I think it's quite useful, again, especially in areas where fire weather is a threat. They have some great testimonials on their website of, there was a family able to get back to their home and save their pets before fire was really impending. And so you can just see real time and real firsthand how this app was helping people. Just again, saving your pet is important. So that was just one of the stories I connected with, but they have many others with first responders and media where this app has been useful in that space. And you may have heard of Wind Ninja. So this is through the Missoula Fire Lab. So they have created this, and Synoptic Data is an optional data set that you can add. So again, you're looking at coarse wind forecasts, localized airflow, channeling, sudden shifts. All of the real-time data is going to be important when you're looking at those conditions in that complex terrain. And so we're providing, those observations. They do, wind modeling, research, those types of projects. Our data can be utilized in those services. And again, it's that complex terrain. It's having rich data in, some of those remote areas. We have the RAWS network within our platform. And sometimes those stations move around and they, we get that information and we update our platform. So it's, again, that just shows, again, the relationship with those data providers as well. We really want the data to be accurate and flowing into the applications and communities that need it most. So this is just another partnership that we have with Wind Ninja and, using real-time data to help empower that application.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention is that we do have a Jupyter notebook available through FireForge, which is part of the Wildfire Commons. And so in this module, you can make plots with a sample of Synoptic's data and play around with some of the code. So for this notebook, we've included data from 3 stations in the area affected by the Palisades fire this past January. So the data sets are for the month of January 2025 for 3 stations owned by Southern California Edison in the Los Angeles, California area. And the notebook includes code to plot time series of fire weather related parameters such as temperature, wind speeds, and precipitation over the course of that month. And I'd encourage anyone who's interested to check out FireForge for this as well as other hands-on opportunities to work with data. And I also wanted to pause here in case Claire wanted to provide any additional information about FireForge or the Synoptic Jupyter Notebook.
So what I have popped into our chat is a link to the public workspace itself. You'll be able to see a description as what Miranda mentioned with some instructions on how to utilize the Jupyter Hub notebook. So when you have logged in, what you can do is select the Wildfire Commons exploratory resource. This is a compute resource that anyone within the community can access. If you're coming in with credentials as an academic partner, you can also use an NSF-related National Research Platform compute too. But the Wildfire Commons exploratory resource is perfect for this case. And when you do go to launch, you'll see your notebook, which can be cloned into your space. And a nice way just to navigate there is you'll be able to add in the data, add in the notebook, and you'll be able to see your folder, access the notebook itself, and as Miranda mentioned, be able to run through the cells in order to see the outputs from the data that we were able to look at. And I'll mention too, if you have any other questions around FireForge or the Commons itself, I'm happy to have a conversation with folks to give a more broader demonstration as well.
But yeah, we've thrown a lot of information at you, so I just wanted to summarize some of the different ways that you can go about accessing data through Synoptic. So if you're a student, you're welcome to sign up for our open access program to get complimentary access to the API for your research. For other small projects needing only a couple of stations worth of data, you're welcome to use the free data download tool available through the Synoptic Data viewer. And lastly, if you are interested in gaining access to a larger amount of data or using the data for commercial purposes, you can get on a paid subscription to our API. And if you are considering this option, we do offer free trials on our website, so you're welcome to try it out ahead of time. And with that, thank you so much, and we'd be happy to take questions.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. So happy to take questions if folks want to add anything into the chat. So we have our first one so far. Thank you. Could you please elaborate on your forecasting data sets? How are they accessible, and when do you plan to provide an API for them?
Randy, do you want to take that, or you want me to?
Yeah, we currently don't have any forecast data. We're specializing in real-time and historical. So all of the real-time and historical data is available through our API, but currently we do not have any forecasts.
Yeah, the real-time data is utilized for forecasting purposes. It's a great resource, but yeah, currently we don't have any forecasting data sets per se. I think I'm seeing any plan to add them. Never say never, I guess, but I mean, right now, we're focusing on the real-time data and historical. We see our customers are seeing the value more and more of having everything in one place. So I won't say, never say never, but currently we're just focusing on real-time and the historical data in our platform.
Perfect. Thank you both. So maybe while we wait, there's another question. Robert, does Synoptic enroll privately owned weather stations? Davis, for example, was looking at the website for this information.
Yep. We currently have Davis stations in the platform. I believe they're a restricted or a private network. Miranda, maybe you can answer if that person were to have a station, is it already being reflected? I don't know if you've searched on our platform to look for your station yet, but we are currently getting those. You can look at our metadata explorer on our website just to see kind of what station networks are there. But yes, we do ingest individual stations, but with it being a Davis one, I believe that's part of our one that we already have in the platform.
Yeah, I'm not sure Davis is a specific network rather than a type of weather station. So we do have some Davis stations, and I just sent a link to the metadata explorer that actually has dots on a map of all of the stations in our platform. So from there, it's really easy to search and see what we have.
Thank you, Robert. Any other questions from the group? I did want to ask one as well, because I know you both had some really great use cases that were illustrating use of synoptic data, especially these deeper collaborations. I was curious because we were looking at the open access program as well. From the open access program and working with the students, has there been any really exciting use cases there that you want to highlight, or maybe do a share of maybe one student's success while using Synoptic?
I'm not aware specifically. We don't always get the research and results. They may just apply for the program. If they're, they have a .edu email address, they may or may not circle back to share what they have used it specifically for. I'm certain there are examples. I don't have any off the top of my head. But yeah, I'm certain there has been research applied using the open access program. It's pretty well utilized program. I think to be, it would probably take us a while to go through, you know, everybody who has kind of used it throughout the years. And I'm certain it's for, you know, just a number of different applications and use cases. So yeah, that's a great question. And I wish I had an answer for you, honestly, because I'm sure there has been one.
Well, I think this is a pitch to the folks that are here.
Yeah.
So definitely encourage students to apply for the program. And if you get a really cool use case from your students, then let Melanie and Miranda know. So that way we can highlight those awesome works that are coming from our workforce development side of the house.
Yeah, and
Miranda.
that would, I'm sorry, that would be a great opportunity too. We love to write stories about how people are using the data. So, you know, we could share something on our blog or in our newsletter as well about the research you've done. Because, you know, a lot of scientists are doing such fantastic research, and I don't think it always gets the acknowledgement that it should. And, you know, and I've seen firsthand what scientists are researching and how detailed and the work they're doing. So we would love to share that on our site.
Quick question. I was looking at that plot with the pins of all your stations. Some of them are public, some of them are restricted. So would the restricted not be available through the API to general customers? Is that what that means, or what's the difference between them?
Yeah, so the restricted networks are those providers that have chosen to use Synoptic's platform as sort of a reselling marketplace. So those are available via the API, but at an additional cost that's set by the data provider.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I did also see a question. Yes, part-time students are also welcome, assuming you're using the data for your research.
Any allocation. Welcome to have students on board. Awesome. Thank you, Robert. So maybe one more call for questions. Awesome. A lot of kudos. Well, thank you so much, Miranda and Melanie. This was great to be able to do a dive into the synoptic world and how data is being collected in a very accurate, uniform way that makes it accessible to the community, especially as we focus in on weather events related to our fire scenarios. So appreciate your time and looking forward to seeing the community utilize your data, whether they're students or researchers wanting to dig into it. And of course, folks, check out that demo that's available on FireForge. It's a great way to see a snapshot of how you can utilize Synoptic's data directly. With that, we'll close out and wish everyone a good rest of your afternoons, and we'll see you soon.